This is just such an adorable... Oh, that was a lot of dust. Why all the dust over here? Hi friends, it's Claire and today I'll be doing my September wrap-up. In the month of September I read 5 books, 2 physical book audiobook combinations, and over half of one audiobook before Scribd cut me off. I also participated in the Bratz Readathon this past month. I was Team Jade and I had so much fun. It really pushed me to get a lot of my monthly reading done and to reach my monthly reading goal. My goal was to read 10 books this month. I came up short with 7.5. But for me, that's actually not too bad for 1 month, so I'm gonna take it. Before I get into my Bratz Readathon wrap-up, I wanted to talk about my 3 favorite reads from the entire month. In 3rd place, we have Jen DeLuca's Well Met. This is such an adorable new adult romance. I think it's definitely one of my favorite adult romances that I've ever read. Emily is visiting a small town while she is taking care of her sister and her sister's daughter after a serious car accident, and she gets roped into volunteering for their summer's Renaissance fair with her niece. It is so adorable, so much fun. It's nerdy, there's some Shakespeare in here, it's romantic. Loved it. In my opinion, the only fault with this book is that there is no diversity, which is a very huge fault. I'm recognizing more and more a lot of the books I read growing up had very little diversity, and this is something I probably wouldn't have even noticed a couple of years ago, but I am trying to consciously seek out books that have diversity, especially in their forefront, and this book had nothing. Aside from that, it was so adorable. I almost put it on my favorites shelf, but that one thing is a very big thing and it stopped me from doing that. Right after reading Well Met, I was on a new adult romance kick, and so I went into Casey McQuiston's Red, White, and Royal Blue. This one made the favorites shelf on Goodreads. 5 out of 5 stars for me. I feel like everyone has read this book by now, so you know. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. Wow. The representation in this book was amazing. Yeah, it was an adorable romance, but it also had some hard-hitting plot points, and it was just so well done. The writing style reminded me a lot of a book like Fangirl, where it's just easy and comforting to read. You feel like you are in the brain of these characters. You feel like you really become those characters when you are in these pages. Yeah, I loved it. And of course, aside from our 2 main characters, Alex and Henry, the female characters in this book were so great too, and I just loved it. I loved it. And because I was on a streak of reading some favorite books, I decided to pick up my most anticipated read of the summer, Loveless by Alice Oseman. Osman? I should really learn because... wow. What to say? What to say? Another favorite. This is going to be a yearly reread. I marked the heck out of my book. It is very much annotated. I knew from reading the description of this book that it was going to get me, and it did. And the impact was a lot. It was another easy read. It wasn't necessarily an easy topic to read about, but once you pick this book up, you kind of just fly through it. It made me laugh. It made me immensely emotional. If you don't know the premise of the book, it's about a young woman, Georgia. She is going into her first year of university. It's all about that coming of age, self-discovery, but a huge main part of the book is Georgia discovering her sexuality as an aromantic asexual. This representation really got me. This book was just, it was even more important to me than I had realized going into it, so I hold this book very near and dear to my heart. Oh my gosh, representation is so important. It's so important. So from those 3 books alone, September was an amazing reading month. The fact that 2 of my all-time favorite books I read back to back this month just made my heart so very happy. Now let's talk about the Bratz Readathon and how that went. Team Jade had 4 prompts plus reading the group book. I did not get my hands on a copy of the group book, which makes me immensely sad. The group book was The Henna Wars and my library has it, but I am still on hold. So I do plan on reading this book eventually. As soon as I get it in my hands, I will read it. Aside from the group book prompt, I got 4 out of for Team Jade. The first prompt was to read a book featuring a cat, and while I didn't finish it, I listened to almost the entire audiobook of Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hidbert. I was very close to the end of this audiobook when Scribd cut out and told me that I couldn't access it anymore, so I don't know what's going on there. I now have it on hold for the audiobook at my library, and that's going to be a long wait, so I do plan on eventually finishing this book. I was enjoying it. I feel like I can't give it a firm rating until I have finished it, but it was roughly in the 4-star area for me. For reading an Own Voices East Asian book, I listened to the audiobook of The Perfect Escape by Suzanne Park. This is a book that I was really looking forward to. It is such a cute premise about 2 teenagers who work at an escape room and end up entering a survivalist zombie competition. It's like the Hunger Games meets romance, contemporary, and while the premise is so adorable, the writing itself just didn't really sit with me. I did not enjoy the audiobook at all. I was not a fan of the narration, and once I got the ebook from my library, I was already so far into the audiobook that it really wasn't worth flipping over, so I would read a little bit of the book on the ebook and then listen to the audiobook when I was working out, and it just wasn't for me. I gave it 3 stars. For Read a Book with green on the cover, you already know I read Well Met by Jen DeLuca, and for Read a Trendy Book, I read Red, White, and Royal Blue, my love. And just to challenge myself a bit further, I tried to accomplish 2 prompts from every other team. Did I succeed? Sort of. Kind of. Yeah, pretty much. For Team Yasmin, I wanted to read an Own Voice Latinx book, so I picked up Don't Ask Me Where I'm From by Jennifer De Leon. Another book where the story itself was really good, very important, but the writing just wasn't quite my style as a reader. I talk about this book in my Bratz Readathon TBR video as well as my summer TBR video if you want the premise of it. I will say this book covered even more than I imagined it would, and I think Latinx voices are not elevated as much as they should be in this modern day society. There are administrations in the world that are wanting to do things like build walls. Side spiel, we're all young people here, I see you. If you are above 18 and you live in the United States, you better be voting. You better be voting. If you read, you know how important it is to put yourself in other people's shoes and to lead with kindness and empathy, and the current administration does not do that at all. I live in Canada. I'm voting. Are they trying to make the process as difficult as possible? Yes, but I am still voting. I'm very grateful to be living in Canada, but I care so much about the United States. It's the place that raised my mom. It's a place that I had always hoped to maybe one day move to, and right now I don't see myself choosing to do that. Young people need to show up in this election. The world is asking you to vote. Vote, vote, vote. I'm sure you are. If you're a booktuber, if you're a reader, I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know the importance. It's just, it's so important. Your voice is important. Use it. Please use it and vote. Okay. The other prompt for Team Yasmin was to read a romance, and I read Red, White, and Royal Blue. I read Well Met. Actually, I read several other romances, so we got that one covered this summer. September? Then we have Team Sasha. The first prompt I chose was to read an Own Voices book featuring a Black main character, and I finally got my hands on Christina Forrest's I Wanna Be Where You Are. I have been wanting to read this book since May, sometime in the late spring, early summer, and I'm so excited. I finally read it. I'm really looking forward to reading her second book that came out in August. Even though this book was not entirely my cup of tea, I think it was definitely written for a bit of a younger young adult audience. I think I would have adored it back in high school. It just felt a little young, but it was still so cute. It has the road trip and the music and the romance and the ambition. The main character, Chloe, wants to be a New York ballerina, which made my heart very happy. And it's so short. It was such a quick read. I believe I gave this one 3.5 stars. And the other prompt for Sasha was to read a historical fiction, so I read Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore, and it lived up to its hype. The romance is real. The women trying to get their vote and the educational side of it is also very enjoyable to read about. It's definitely not one of my all-time favorite books, but I'm very glad I picked it up. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, we have Team Chloe. Read a book with pink on the cover. Boy, you got helpless. and this is the prompt where I fell up short. The prompt was to read a book with a mental illness in the forefront, and I did not. I didn't actually have a book on my TBR for this prompt, and I think that's where I kind of fell short. I asked people for their recommendations, and I got quite a few very good recommendations. I'm really looking forward to checking out a lot of those books. But for this readathon, I did not complete that final task. So, for what I had to accomplish in the actual readathon, Team Jade, I got 4 out of 4, but I did not read the group book, so I fell short there. And then for my own challenge, I got 2 out of 2 for Team Yasmin, 2 out of 2 for Team Sasha, and 1 out of 2 for Team Chloe. I don't know what that was. Was I like directing a plane landing? So yeah, that's it for this month. I read a lot of books that I just adored, and I am so excited to move into fall reading. I'm really excited to start getting into some fantasy books. There are so many books on my TBR that I've been holding off for the fall. If you're interested in knowing what some of those books are, you can check out my fall TBR video this way. Let me know in the comments below what were your favorite books that you read this month, and what book are you looking forward to reading in October. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!